Hey everybody, it's Norm from Test. I'm here at CES 2016, and it's my first time to try the new HTC Vive Pre prototype for SteamVR here at the HTC booth. I want to first talk with you a little bit about what's changed in terms of the hardware before I get to my demo and interview with HTC. The headset, they say, is lighter. They've added this back mechanism to hold this strap in the back, which is actually a soft strap. Unlike the Oculus, it's not a hard strap in the back, but it puts the weight more in the back of the head than the front. But it still kind of bugs out a little bit, even though the headset itself is smaller than the previous version. You tighten it from the side here, and then the front, the photodiode sensors are actually all blocked off now. They say they're more sensitive than before. They look like they're in about the same arrangement, but what you'll notice is that there is a single camera in the front, and that camera is what HTC says is their breakthrough. It actually taps into the Chaperone boundary system. If you're in VR using SteamVR and you walk to the edge of a room, you create the boundaries before you set up your lighthouse system. So you can actually set points in your room, create the square cube or any polygonal structure, and then as you walk along those walls, the holodeck walls pop up, but with the camera, they'll actually now show a version of what the camera sees imposed on top of that. And we'll be trying that as well. They also have said the optics have changed a little bit in terms of the relationship with the display. It's reduced the mirror effect, that linen effect. They say that's calibrated better. And then also the controllers changed. It still is, you still hold it like a wand, but now the hoop is on top here that's supposed to be better for occlusion. So if you're moving the controllers in front of each other, they won't block the line of sight to the lighthouse sensors. They say the touchpad is different, it's more accurate. And then they've also moved some of the buttons. So the buttons are now on top and bottom. The trigger is now a two-stage trigger, and then the grips have a rubberized texture so you can squeeze, and those are both buttons as well. Lighthouse. It is a wireless system, so all it needs is power. There is HDMI, or not HDMI, there is USB, micro USB in the back, but that's just for calibration and firmware updates. And there's one port here for syncing. This can be a direct connection to your other Lighthouse unit, or it can actually communicate wirelessly between those units. These don't need to plug into your computer. What does plug into your computer is this link box, so you have HDMI, USB, and power, and then on this color-coded side, the orange side, that gets connected to the HTC Vive Pre, and it's still about a 15 feet or 5 meter corded connection. So let's get to our demo, and I'll share with you some impressions afterward. So now I'm joined by Ryan from HTC, your product marketing manager for the Vive. And at the event here at CES, you guys are showing off the second developer kit, the Vive Pre. Why did you guys make a second developer kit?
Well, I think as we're on the road to the consumer release, we want to make sure we have iterative design changes in between there to incorporate as much feedback from both the user and development community as possible.
Well, developer kits are something that are going specifically to developers. You guys are making 7,000 of these. And how many of the first developer kits have you guys sent out to developers?
We haven't announced an exact number, but we're really happy with the way what we've seen come out of it right now.
And the time between this development kit hitting and some developers now, some early developers, and the Vive being released, what you guys said this April, is that enough time for feedback? Like, what's the reason to get the changes out now? Is it also to test production, for example?
Well, right now what we want to do is we have a certain amount of improvements in this new headset. So we have an entirely new visual system in place with Vive Pre. So we have a new display that's brighter and allows greater visuals. So with that, we've also implemented mirror correction, which sometimes is referred to as or not the correction, but rather mirror as that linen-like quality that you see in VR at times. Sometimes it's referred to as looking through like a dirty window. That's now being corrected for across all applications in Vive. So we want to make sure that system-wide improvements like that are represented in the newest developed hardware. And we're going to take feedback from our developers continuously throughout the process from both a hardware and software standpoint.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of these changes. On the headset, on the display side, it's a brighter display right now, you said. It's the same resolution, same refresh rate, but with the mirror correction, is that a calibration to diminish that linen effect? How do you change the relationship between the optics and that display?
Well, right now it's a mix of both a hardware and a software solution. So we haven't gone into the deep specifics around it, but it is both components at play.
And then what people should notice, especially in dark scenes, is what you said is the linen effect, that the vertical lines just disappearing.
Those are times that it was most noticeable. Yeah, really the best way to describe it is sometimes when in VR, you look like you're looking at an image rather than the image surrounding you. You won't notice that as much in the new headset.
Now, from the first developer kit, you also have different upgrades to, for example, the photodiode sensors and the way the lighthouse system works with the motors. Can you explain some of those changes as well?
Yeah, so the change with the headset itself, of course, the ergonomics have changed significantly. While a similar weight, the proportions of the weight and the balance across the head for the user has significantly improved. So with the implementation of the cradle in the back of the head strap, that really relieves a lot of the forward-facing weight that you were experiencing on previous development kits. As you mentioned, the controller has also been completely redesigned, both for balance, shape, and ergonomics. While we're still saying we're tracking within 1/10 of a degree, you'll notice a lot less occlusion in some of the different experiences that you have and just greater tracking ability overall.
And so that was reduced by both the design of the controller and also the base station. And are the sensors more sensitive, or is the way the lasers being sent out any different?
It's a mix of both positioning and the sensor itself.
And for that, in your testing, you found that occlusion is diminished. You can actually put these in front of each other and still be able to track the controllers?
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, on the headset, one of the big things that's changed is what you guys call the breakthrough is the camera system in the front that works with the Chaperone system, this guidance around the room. For people who don't know out there, with SteamVR, you can create a virtual boundary for your room. Can you describe how that boundary is created in software for user to user?
So after identifying your play space, what we've seen in the past is when you're approaching a physical barrier, you had that, it's referred to as like the holodeck-like wall, the blue grid. And while it was definitely an added layer of safety, it didn't have that real-world element. So what we have with the forward-facing camera now is both a convenience and safety feature, is as you approach those barriers that you previously defined, you're going to start to see real-world elements come into view. And as you experienced yourself, it's a softer focus. But that camera story is also used as a convenience feature beyond a safety feature, where if at any time during your experience you're able to pull up a wider view camera, an active view. So if you want to do something through prolonged use, like grab a drink or take a seat or interact with your keyboard, if someone comes into the room to talk to you, you can make a semblance of eye contact and maintain that conversation. Small things that don't seem big at first, but through prolonged and regular use of VR, really is an added experience for our customer.
Now, it's a single camera. It's not a stereo camera. You guys aren't doing any depth mapping. Are you taking any information from the positional tracking to warp that image to better map it on top of the real world, or are you just kind of applying it as wallpaper for the Chaperone system?
There are several things being done through the system. Right now what you saw was kind of the blue grid. While it is an active camera, what you saw, I'm sorry, not blue grid, but blue image. One thing we do is we have gone to a monocolor image just because we feel like it's the best experience for the customer. You will see changes between now and the consumer release, and there will be a variety of options available for people.
And is the idea that you eventually want to have that image mapped perfectly, so what you see, the camera representation of the controllers, for example, it will be almost exactly where your hands are holding the controllers?
There are definitely changes to be made between now and the consumer availability of the product. We're also going to be releasing the camera information to our developers to do with what they want.
Can you talk about any of the camera, the focal length, any of the wide angle aspects of it, or resolution for the camera?
We're not going over anything too specific right now, but we will have future announcements in the coming months.
But it's built into the SDK. Now, is this part of this specific to the HTC Vive Pre, or is it a part of the SteamVR system as a whole, that's going to be part of their Chaperone system?
I can't speak on behalf of Steam, but for the Vive Pre, it is implemented at this point.
So at this point, it's exclusive to HTC's product.
I would have to defer to Steam, or Valve.
All right. And so between now and April, you're getting 7,000 units out. How does that affect your production of the final version of the HTC Vive? Is that already going to be in production? Is that still being tweaked in design? How does production ramp up happen?
Well, we're ready to incorporate feedback as this product goes into market, but this has been planned, so it's on track for what we hope to have in releasing a full available product in April.
And the full product release that's going to be available to consumers. Anyone's going to want to be able to buy it can buy it. How long does production ramp up take? If you're producing, how long have these units, for example, been in pre-production to get those 7,000 units out?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we pride ourselves at HTC is being able to have quick rev cycles. We've been a hardware manufacturer for a long time. We feel like we really understand the space, so we're very comfortable with where we're at.
Are you guys making the panels and everything yourself? Is there a lot of custom hardware in here, or are there also off-the-shelf components that make it easier to manufacture?
For the specific components of Vive Pre, there's not too much that we've announced publicly, but we have been working actively to get this unit out on time.
2016, a big year for VR. Oculus, of course, announced their pricing, $600, and you guys have said in the past this is a high-end VR unit. Who do you expect to be the adopters of VR this year, and what's the market for VR, do you think, through the early and mid and late 2016?
So I think we've been surprised by some of the early feedback. There are definitely people that are interested in bringing VR into their homes in 2016 that weren't likely candidates. I think success for HTC in 2016 with Vive is really just the realization of the VR experience that customers have been waiting for a long time. I think we've all, through experience with sci-fi and VR that's been out there in the past, what everybody's been hoping for from VR was the most immersive world possible. And with 360-degree tracking and in a room-scale environment, we're closer to interacting with a virtual world than ever.
And at the end of this year, do you expect? Is it a long-term plan for HTC? I should ask. Is getting the Vive out this year, and then do you expect mainstream adoption really hit in the next 2 to 3 years?
Again, with more people than we originally expected being interested in the product, we're ready for where the market takes us once it comes out. But I think that people are ready to adopt VR into their homes.
How would you evaluate success for Vive and for the VR market in general this year?
Success is the realization of what people have been hoping for from VR. So allowing people to become truly immersed within a virtual world. We think people are going to be happy with the investment of their virtual reality system. We want everyone to have a similar experience. We want people to be able to reach out and engage proactively. And we're happy to deliver that to every customer that purchases Vive.
A lot of that will be dependent on the developers making the content for it as well. Are you working with developers to create any HTC Vive exclusive content or things to showcase the capabilities of room scale VR?
We're absolutely creating content that specifically showcases the various abilities of Vive. I think one thing that we really want people to understand is you don't have to have a 15 by 15 environment to really benefit from 360-degree tracking. Even if you have the area that we've spoken about before, like the size of about 2 yoga mats, you can truly experience that full immersion. 360-degree tracking, even if standing in front of your desk, is great for being able to reach up high, reach down low, stay truly engaged and interactive with your environment. So it's great for a variety of spaces, and we feel like everybody's going to be able to benefit from that.
Awesome, and we're excited to try this out when it finally hits consumers' hands later this year. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I have a bonus interview. I bumped into Alex and Devin from Alchemy Labs. Job Simulator is your game, and it's what they're demoing here with the HTC Vive. You guys have been developing for Oculus and Vive and PSVR, and you guys have had access to the new hardware. So I wanted to pick your brains a little bit about what you thought about the new dev kit, why SteamVR and HTC put this out, what your feedback is likely going to be, and how that might affect your game development. So what do you guys think about it?
That's fantastic. I mean, we started developing on a even earlier prior kit when we first got it back in January. So we've seen it go through many revisions, the old unwieldy sawtooth prototype, all the way to where we are, and it gets better every time we try it.
So you guys, the public developer kit that was released to developers last year, that's the one you guys have had most time with. What's changed from your perspective? Has the increase in sensitivity for the photodiodes, has the lighthouse changes, have those affected any of your ability to make the game better or anything on the technical side?
So the controllers are the biggest improvement. So they're more accurate. They fit better in your hands. For CES, we went and refined how hand presence feels in the game, and that is a huge improvement, and it's pretty fantastic.
Your game model is the floating white glove, so you didn't have to remodel the controller to import into the game. But do you notice that occlusion is reduced with this? Actually, what kind of movements can you get with this controller over the past one?
I mean, it hasn't really affected occlusion. What it really comes down to is that the original prototype controllers, they were very rounded on the handle, and so people were holding it in a different angle, and the way that their hand wraps around the controller, we're trying to get hand presence to the best it could be and hand registration. So when you pull the headset off, you see your hand, the virtual hand, in line exactly where your real hand is. So the way that you grip it, the way your finger lands on this trigger, if they make micro changes to the plastics or the shape, we want to make sure that the hand aligns perfectly. So we did some work there, but really it comes down to getting the same experience with the better controller and the new way that you hold it.
So ergonomics is really what's the upgrade, and even though it kind of looks like a wand, you're not holding it like a wand, like a baton. Even though it is a stick, the way you're gripping like you have right now, it's more akin to, would you say, like the Oculus Touch, where it's a natural pose?
Yeah, it has like a pose that you grab it instead of something where you could rotate your hand around it in different positions. That really helps with getting hand presence.
Yeah. As far as the ergonomic changes, we wanted to make sure that everyone holds it the same way, right? If certain people hold it off by 15 degrees or the other way, then it's very hard to predict where the hand should show up in VR. So a more refined controller means a more consistent grip, which means a better experience for everyone and everything's aligning better.
Now, your hand showing up in VR, that's also changed now because there's a camera on the Vive Pre. How has that affected your use of it, and what do you think about the camera? What can you tell us about anything from the dev kit and the camera?
So we haven't had access to the camera tech prior to CES, and so really I think it's being used for Chaperone and understanding where in the world you are. So we're not planning on using the camera tech to do anything different with your hands because you're already holding the controller. We've got the virtual hand representation, and I think it kind of solves like what they've been talking about, which is I want to make sure I'm not going to trip over my table. I want to be able to reach out and pick up a drink or do whatever it is, cat detection, everything they've been talking about there. I think is more bringing in what's going on in the world into your experience so that you don't get some kind of safety or some other problem like walking into things.
So you're saying it's more of a platform feature in terms of the setup than more of a game-specific feature. You don't see yourselves taking advantage of it, at least not in Job Simulator, but would you be interested in exploring what the camera can do for games?
So I'm really excited what people are going to do with this because I don't even understand yet all the possibilities that whenever you can bring positional tracking down to the sub-millimeter and also have the video in, you can do some pretty crazy stuff. So I'm really excited to see what people will do in that area.
So you guys mentioned that you haven't had access to this camera yet, but you have had a dev kit past the public dev kit last year. Is HTC, have they been prototyping a lot between these public two dev kits?
We went straight from the public DK1 or development kit version to this, and we just got this a little earlier than the kits that are going out soon or now. Just so that we can make sure that it works here at CES, and we have the headset and we can get the hands lined up. And so, yeah, we just needed to make sure that got done before everybody broke for the holidays so that we can come here, because CES comes so soon after all the holiday break. We just want to get it done.
HTC is saying that they're using feedback from users and developers like yourselves on the Pre to tweak the final version. What type of feedback would you have so far and would hope to see from developers that make it to the final version so that the Vive is the best it can possibly be?
So HTC's been fantastic in taking our feedback through this entire process, and they've been continuously refining all this. Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff here. Like the lighthouses are smaller, they're ultra quiet now, and that's fantastic. And that was a piece of feedback we had early on, and that they have rectified. So.
Yeah, I mean, with the early lighthouses, like we had some of our team in apartments, and they were shaking a lot, and we were worried about the noise and things like that. And then we got the new ones, and it was just. The whole room's silent. You try to listen to it, you can't hear anything. So we're really happy with that, and it was just the natural progression of the way things going. So when we get the kits, we unbox it. We try to tape ourselves unboxing it, and then send a big letter to HTC and Valve and say hey, this is great that this got fixed. Oh, we're so happy that the lighthouses are quieter. It seems like people are holding it in their hands, this way and that, and the force feedback here, the click feels better. Like in the old controller, you could hear it squeaking when you grab the controller. Now it feels more solid. So we try to give as many pieces of feedback, good or bad, so that they can get that super early.
And then on the development side, the software SDK side, Valve has been providing updates continually enough to match the hardware improvements, and that's more to come, you think?
Yeah, there's definitely the pass-through API is a new thing coming out and stuff like that. So
we see the super early beta commits as they work on this types of stuff, and we heard early on that they wanted to make sure that you could see battery levels properly, and we see an early UI of something, and then we give feedback on it, or maybe something's broken or breaking our game, and so not everyone shows the controller. We show hands, and they assume certain things about what a controller should be shown, and we see the Steam overlay, and just seeing how it all plays with our game. It's good to get some close to the metal dog fooding of the hardware and give that feedback.
So you don't have to worry about that stuff, and you can just worry about your game, because Job Simulator is what you guys are focused on, and we can't wait to play it. Thank you so much, Alex and Devin, for chatting with me.
Thank you.
All right, so I just tried the HTC Vive Pre. That's the second developer kit. Chatted with HTC's marketing representative, who didn't give us a ton of information about the hardware specifics or how the new system works. Looks like they're holding that pretty close to their chest, but did get to chat with Alchemy Labs about their experiences with it. And it really seems like I'm confused why they released the second developer kit in the first place. There isn't a ton of functional changes that are going to affect the games coming out this year. This is a consumer product that's supposed to be slated for an April launch. Now, the Chaperone system itself has actually changed, that camera system. I wouldn't necessarily call it a major breakthrough, but it is an improvement on the Chaperone system. Previously, as you walk to the boundaries of the boundaries that you create beforehand, whether that's a square boundary or a polygonal boundary, it would just be those grid-like blue holodeck walls. Now, you can actually move beyond them. You're more comfortable moving beyond those walls because it will superimpose your external world around you. So I was able to see, for example, Joey filming, the person giving the demo, and even my own hands overlaid as I move close to the boundaries. There are two versions of that Chaperone system. On the default system, if I get close to a wall, the boundary, I see the grid and I see a light outline, a blue outline, kind of like a muddled, like a watercolor outline of the world, what the camera sees of the world. And then if I press the system button twice, then it switches and I see a much more, still monochrome, but more realized version of what the camera is seeing. It's still not like the Gear VR where you can use the camera pass-through and see a full color version of the world. There is no depth mapping, and it looks like they're not even warping that image at all, taking into account any of the positional information of your controllers and of the headset in relation to the Lighthouse sensors. The most jarring moment was if I backed into a wall and I was experiencing something like the Into the Blue demo, and I backed into one of the Chaperone systems, and the whole world environment turned blue as well. So I would actually want to turn that off, or if I was using a smaller Chaperone area. It's also not perfectly mapped one-to-one. I'm really curious about what the focal length of that camera is. On the Samsung Gear VR, using the Galaxy S6's camera or the Note 5's camera, that field of view is actually pretty close to what the world looks like to my eyes when holding that camera right there. But with the camera right here on the HTC Vive Pre, when I held near-field objects, like putting the Vive controller up to my face, there was a definite disconnect between the virtual representation of the positionally tracked controller, that being in-game modeled in the world, and what the camera was showing. The camera was actually much bigger, I would say about 20% bigger, and not overlaid on top, but behind it. And so it looked really weird, and I would hope that they would compensate or adjust for that in the future. I don't know if it's about its usefulness for augmented reality. That's what a lot of people are saying. I think you're gonna need either a better camera or maybe a stereoscopic camera or maybe an infrared camera for some depth sensing, but really seems like something just used for that Chaperone system right now. We didn't get to try any new demos. There was the Aperture demo, job simulators, tilt brush, things we've seen before. So really the new hardware, ergonomically, it looks all right. It still feels a little bit like sea goggles. It's a little tight in the back. It's not a rigid back strap. The ergonomics of the controllers are a little improved. I get what they're saying. It's less of a wand now, and there's more of an orientation of my hand holding it in one fixed pose the whole time, but I didn't even notice any major occlusion improvements. We're gonna need much more time with this to test whether the lighting panel improvements are actually for real, and also whether those mirror linen improvements are for real, because I didn't notice a major improvement in the demos I use. But that is the HTC Vive Pre. Developers are getting it now. They're making only 7,000 of those. Who knows how that's going to affect their ramp up for the consumer release, but that's hopefully going to come out in April. And we don't know what price is, but the Oculus being $600, this one maybe $700, maybe $800. It's going to be a high-end VR unit. That's it for HTC Vive at CES 2016. I'm Norm from Tested, and we'll have more coverage from this event on our site. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.